Welcome to Mindful School Marketing, your go-to podcast for personal and professional growth.
We're school marketers, business owners, and moms passionate about connecting other school professionals with tools and strategies for success.
We love solving problems, exploring new ideas, and thinking outside the box. Let's transform your school and life starting right now. Welcome to Mindful School Marketing Podcast. I'm Aubrey Bursch.
And I'm Kara Clays. Today, we are going to talk about something that sounds simple, but actually has a huge impact on both retention and enrollment, and that is parent feedback.
I'm excited about this one, Tara, because I think a lot of schools are working really hard to attract new families, but they're not really always doing enough to understand what current families are feeling and, where friction might be building, what parents are saying when they talk about the school to other people.
And that matters, right, for retention, but it also matters for how you market your school.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's about retention, but so much is about marketing as well. Because if we're not asking questions or listening, as I like to say, to parents and families, we're kind of guessing on a lot of different fronts, both for retention and marketing. So really schools right now, especially in this, market that we're living in, need a better system for listening. They need to know what kind of feedback to gather, when a quick survey is enough, and when they might actually need something much bigger than that.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk about this with you today because this is something that you work with schools on a lot about how to gather better parent feedback and use it to improve the family experience and how that's going to strengthen messaging and marketing for a school.
Yeah, because I think some people, schools don't think about it, but the best language for your marketing is often sitting right inside those parent comments, or conference notes, or surveys and conversations. You kind of just have to actually gather it, organize it, and use it.
Yeah. Well, let's dive in. I'm going to start. I want to ask you, why do you think schools might want to pay more attention to parent feedback right now?
Yeah. So right now it's spring. And so, I mean, whatever time of year you're at, but right now with spring, you've probably already kind of heard from parents and families who are not returning. So you're getting some information about attrition. And so now as you're looking forward into the summer, into the next school year, this is a time when you're like planning for next year. You kind of want to understand why, what are the key challenges? What are the, opportunities before us? Why did people decide to leave? Why are they staying, right? What are they happy about? What do they wish were different? A lot of different things. So this is a great time to be having this discussion. I would also say, it, that parent feedback piece is so key right now to schools because it helps them think about like, okay, so if parents are saying this, and we need to take note and maybe plan around what people are saying. And I highly recommend schools pay attention to that right about now.
So, what kind of feedback should schools be gathering right now?
Yeah. So I like to say schools. So when we think about parents and gathering feedback and listening, really it is an entire year approach and it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not like just one and done, like now is the time. So we're just going to hit this end of year survey, which is a lot of what a lot of schools do is they wait till like the last month of school when everything's crazy and then they survey their parents and they take that data. But really gathering feedback is an incredibly thoughtful process that is multi-pronged. So it doesn't always have to be survey. So a lot of times when we're working with schools, we're looking at like their communications and their schools, flow of like what's happening during the year. We often encourage like new family surveys in the fall, a mid-year check-in survey, because that's when you're going to catch key issues before they potentially turn into attrition risks. And then we talk about, okay, like what happens during the admissions process? Are you serving around that? Are you making sure that you're, during conferences and stuff like that, you're gathering feedback from parents and you're listening to parents then, and then you're collecting all that information and really using that in a meaningful way to help you make decisions about what's currently happening in your school year and what you need to change potentially what could impact your enrollment, and how you might use some of the data that you receive for marketing efforts. So really it is a lot of different ways that you're gathering this parent feedback and a lot of different ways that you're using it as well.
Okay, so that's all great, but now how do schools do it? Like, can they do it themselves? I mean, they're multi-pronged, so I assume some of the things they can do themselves and maybe some can't. Talk a little bit about the process.
Yeah, I think a lot of schools already have all this data available to them, right? Now, obviously, you can hire someone, who does, something we do, but you can do it yourself. Like you can hire a third party to come in and conduct your surveys and stuff like this, but you can also do it yourself. So if you just look at your year and say, okay, so when do we want to gather data? Why do we want to gather this data? Right. And then put together like, okay, so what are we going to do with this data too? Right. Because a lot of schools might ask questions because they think they should ask them, but they don't know what to do when people give them responses to them. So it's understanding like what is your main goal? What do you want to do with this data? What kind of data do you want and why? And then coming up with a plan around that. So then once you have that plan, it's figuring out, okay, so when are we going to like, do we need to, put together some surveys? Are we going to have some sort of conference like report back form so we can collect data that way so we can house it all in one place? Figuring out what system works for your school because, coming up with a complex system that nobody uses is not going to benefit the school, right? So really it's coming up with like what is a system that works for our school and what is like the bare minimum but we can stick with that will get us the data we need to make key decisions now and in the future.
Excellent. I'm going to go off topic or not off topic, but a little bit off of what you and I talked about before this call. So we might end up editing this out, everybody. We'll see. I'll be on the spot. So is there a problem if a survey or questions are coming from the school? Are parents less likely to be honest in their answers? And also, part two of that question is and statement is that I almost never fill out the surveys when I get them. So, any tips you can share on, getting people to be honest and to answer the surveys?
Oh, I love this question so much. I love being put on the spot. Okay, so be honest and then actually fill them out, right? So, one, I would say, I think anonymity is key. A lot of schools don't. They have, a name tied with a survey. I think, especially if a school is sending a survey, that's going to automatically detract from the honesty factor because they have relationships with staff members. They're not going to feel comfortable being honest in a survey at all if their name is associated. And schools will swear that they will, but I'm like, have you ever been a member of a school and been like, I really want to say something about, what happened over here with this teacher, but I do not want my name associated with it. So anonymity is key, I think, for a successful survey. Now, I've seen some schools where they'll have a mid-year check-in survey that maybe is not anonymous, and then an end-of-year one that is. So you can play with that for sure. But I do recommend that honesty piece right there. And then let me see. Did I answer that question fully, Tara? Or was there a
Yeah,
key?
that was good. Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then the second one was how do you get them to fill it out, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think this is at first, I would look at your school community. And I think part of this is building in the expectation for how we as a school want to hear from you. So from the very beginning, from back to school night to your summer communications, how are you telling your parents and school body like this is how we want to hear? We want to hear from you. These are the ways that we would like to hear from you and that you can give us your feedback, right? If you're not a survey person, schedule a call. If you're not like, if you want to meet with a certain administrator, here are the ways you can do that, right? And here's the way you can give feedback. You can give it to your teacher this way. You can give it to an administrator this way. Like really being open about your process. Also, if you have surveys going out during a certain time of year, you can say, okay, so in October, we send our new families a survey. Here's how we use that data. Here's when we're reporting back about it. Reporting back is another thing I will get to in just a sec. And like then it's like maybe December or January, we have our mid-year check-in survey. Here's what we do with that information. And here's when we report back. And then here's our end of the year survey. And here's the purpose and goals, of all these surveys. And here's how we report back to you. I think when people you build that into the expectation of like, we want to hear from you. And these are the ways and this is how we use the information you give us. People are more likely to participate. Also, I think building the trust around that is really that feedback loop because I mean, one of the reasons I can't tell you how much I can't stand like filling out a survey and then like, for example, I complained to my gym. I don't know if you've have this with gyms. Like there are a bunch of Instagram influencers at my gym and they have their cameras out filming everyone during their workout sessions. And I'm like sitting there, I've been in the background of, I can't even tell you how many Instagram fitness videos, who knows who these people are. And I'm like, I'm sweaty. I don't want to be online. We just did like the deep fakes episode with, Evan. And I'm like, I'm very mindful of all this. And so I'm like, okay, so I send a survey, I fill out a survey. I'm like, I am unhappy with this. What is your gym policy regarding, videoing people without their permission and consent, right? And, nothing happened. Like no one like responded back to me about that survey. And I'm like, and I haven't seen any changes in the gym. I'm like, well, I feel like that was a waste of my time, right? So think about parents, if they're taking the time to fill out that with like their heartfelt concerns of like, this is impacting my child, this is impacting my family, and they don't see any response by the administration that they've read the survey and that there's some key issues that they've taken note and what they're doing to improve them. And then also following up when they're actually doing the things, they're less likely and invested to fill out that survey. But if you can train your community to about what to expect, and then yes, we value what you say, then you're going to have more successful completion on your surveys.
Awesome. That's really helpful. I love the idea of starting out with your conversation at back to school night with, here's how you let us know how we're doing. We really want to hear. I think that's really helpful. So let's talk about how all of this information can be used for marketing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, once again, like you have a built in marketing base, right? So, anytime especially think about your new families, they've just gone through your process. Like, why did they select you? Your current families, why are they staying? Like, these are key value proposition pieces and key messaging that you can use for your own marketing. So, anytime you're collecting this information, understanding that these are data points for you, it's a built in audience. People have just selected your school. They selected your school. They did amongst like the other schools in your area, they chose you. So why did they choose you? And making sure that you're mapping out those data points and benchmarking them year to year, so that you can work on your messaging and marketing around those points, I think is really helpful. I mean, that's just one of many ways that you can use these things for marketing. I would also say that indirectly, kind of this feedback from parents can help with marketing because the more your current parent body, your families feel listened to and kind of have that collaborative relationship with you, that they know you're listening and they know that you're understanding their concerns, the less likely they are to end up on one of those review sites really angry. Not to say you won't have some angry parents out there, but like you're more likely have a way for them to channel their feedback to you because you've outlined these are the many ways that you can give us feedback, right? And you can do so anonymously too, right? Instead of going on, Niche or something like that. And unfortunately, telling everyone else like why you're upset with the school. So those are just a few of many ways. I mean, you can use them for FAQs, especially the new parents. Like, what do you wish you had known before you started school? Well, you can make the new parent journey so much better and like make sure your FAQs are better on your website and stuff like that. There's so many different ways you can use the information gathered to help you improve your marketing.
I love that. Thank you. So, uh, as we kind of look to wrap this up a little bit, I want to kind of broaden, like come out and think more broadly. So, when a survey isn't enough, when does a school need something bigger than that?
Yeah. So surveys and like your multi-pronged feedback approach within your school is a great way for, year to year annually to check in with your families. However, if you're seeing tremendous attrition, especially in certain grades, if you're having leadership transitions or challenges around leadership, maybe you're, considering an expansion to your school, anything that's like considered maybe a deeper challenge within the community or opportunity within the community, that might be a time when you step back and say, we need a little bit more and we probably need some third party help. Because you're definitely going to want to do some interviews with key stakeholders. You're definitely going to want to have a deep data dive so you truly can say, pointing at data, like these are this is, the challenge and here's what we are hearing and here's why and all sorts of stuff like that. So that is when you might want to consider, a little bit of a market research piece.
Mm, okay. And what are some of the biggest mistakes that schools make when it comes to gathering feedback and doing surveys?
Yeah,
I know you mentioned like not anonymous. That's probably a big
not
one.
anonymous. Not anonymous. The feedback piece is key. I understand how busy school leaders are, but remembering that there's a feedback loop. Like you have to report back out about the survey. You don't have to share everything. Just share like 3 main points from the survey that you were addressing, because that builds that relationship with your community. Also, going into a survey without having a plan of like or goal, just like, oh, these are some nice questions to ask, and then being like, oh, look at those answers. Is that like, why are you asking the questions? What's your goal with the survey? And also then really looking at how, I mean, I know AI can analyze surveys. I will say it's not always accurate, so be mindful of that. But, analyzing your survey not only to deal with the data points, but looking at the comments and then making sure that you're not weighing those negative comments too much. Because oftentimes as school administrators, we get hung up on like that one negative comment that some parent gave, but like there were 50,000 positive ones, but that one negative one stays with us. So really being mindful about how you're kind of reviewing the data and, making sure that you're doing it in a way that is representative of all the data that you're receiving. So definitely those things. And then also just making sure you have an overall plan for your feedback. Like just sit down this summer, map out a plan with your admin about like, this is how we gather feedback. This is how we communicate about how we gather feedback. This is how we want people, this is what we're going to do with the feedback. This is when we're going to meet about the feedback, like from the survey, from the conferences and stuff like that. So you do have a plan, because as busy school leaders, time flies and your plates are full, and you're probably in the heat of that month of like feedback, when you're getting back your surveys and stuff like that, you'll probably forget one of these things if they're not scheduled and there isn't a plan to go along with it.
Excellent point. This is all so interesting. And I don't do the surveys myself, but I can definitely identify with focusing on the one negative. It's like a human trait, not just a school administrative trait, I think. Well, let's ask one more question before we run out of time, which is, once schools gather the feedback, what should they actually do with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think really it's first of all scheduling time to review it. That's number one. Schedule time to review it both individually, so whoever's on your review team, right? And then also it's often helpful if one person on your team wrote the survey, maybe they're not in the review group. Just like try to vary it up a bit, and then making sure that you schedule time as a group to review it, and then sort your responses into strengths, like what are your challenges, opportunities, what are urgent issues and longer term fixes, because some things, and not trying to please everyone. Like you have to know who your school is and who they aren't. If you're a school that is like doesn't have great athletic teams and they want you to build out and like don't have the bandwidth to expand athletics, and they want you to build out, like one person asked for a volleyball team and you're like, we don't have any coaches. Like clearly that's not something that you can give your community, right? So being very mindful of who you are in the process of what you can realistically do and what you can't do. And then, I would say really looking at, what is usable and what you can move on, and making that list of maybe your top 3 of what you're going to report back on. So AI can certainly help with this, but definitely making sure that you are all on your administrative team, or whoever's your survey, is looking at not only the surveys, but then I would focus on like what you're receiving from conferences, from teachers and everything like that, and making sure you're bringing that into the conversation as well.
Super helpful. That's really great information, Aubrey. Thanks for sharing all of that. I think people are going to really be able to take this, especially at this time of year, and think about how they're going to approach their new year next year and getting off on the right foot, but also what they can be doing over the summertime too with information that they have.
Yeah, I think this is great. I'm so excited for schools. Hopefully they found something actionable that they can take from this episode. Short but sweet, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us on the Mindful School Marketing Podcast.
We'd love it if you pop into iTunes and leave a review, 5-star preferred. Let us know how you like the show. It helps us improve what we're doing and helps others find us too.